Last time, Lucas and others came here. They ate my dinner for free. I still can't get over my anger. So frustrating.
Mom! Are you still mad at them?
Apple. It's all your fault. You're too kind. You invited strangers into our house. I spent $500. Apple.
Mom! They're not strangers. They're our neighbors.
I don't like them.
But, Mom, you cook so well. Why don't you cook and sell the meals?
What?
Mom, I think everyone likes your cooking. You can cook and sell the meals to them. You have a lot of free time anyway.
Apple. That's a good idea. I'm a housewife. I don't have any income. If I sell food, I'll have more money. It's good. Apple. You're a smart girl. I like your idea.
Dad! I'm so hungry. Since Mom got pregnant, she's been cooking vegetables. I'm sick of eating them.
You're right, Lucas. But I don't know what to order from outside.
Dad! I wish we could go to Mrs. Pear's house. She cooks very well.
Really, Lucas?
That's right, Dad. Mrs. Pear has the cooking skills of a super chef. She cooks to everyone's liking. Like Miss Laurie, Teacher Mary, Mr. Simon.
I think it's delicious based on what you're telling me. I want to try it.
Dad! Do you smell anything?
The food smells so good.
That's the smell of Mrs. Pear's food.
Really?
Let's go to her house. Lucas's mother and Mrs. Pear don't like each other.
Hello, Mr. Peter. Lucas.
Mrs. Pear. This is
a food stall. I sell the dishes I make. Hope you will support.
Really?
That's right. The price is very cheap. Only $10.
Dad! Let's buy it. Mrs. Pear cooks very well.
Okay, Lucas. I want to buy 2 portions of spaghetti.
Okay, Mr. Peter.
Hey, the food smells so good.
Lily, Adam,
We want to buy it too. Lucas, Peter, what's wrong? Why don't you eat dinner?
Mom, I'm full.
Susan, I'm full too.
But what did you eat? Why don't you eat the food I cookied?
Susan, Lucas and I bought food from Mrs. Pear.
What?
She sells cheap and delicious food.
Mom, Mrs. Pear's food is delicious. We can't eat vegetables like you. So we bought food from Mrs. Pear.
Lucas, Peter, they don't respect me. I mixed this salad so well. And they didn't eat it? But is Mrs. Pear's food that good? Hello, Mrs. Pear. Hello, Mrs. Susan. Peter and Lucas love your food. That's right. Everyone loves my cooking skills. Miss Laurie also praised it. Mrs. Susan, you should try it. If so, I want to buy fried chicken. Okay, Mrs. Susan. I think it's normal. What's so good about it? I make it better than her. Wait! If Mrs. Pear sells, then I can sell too. I'll have more money. Mrs. Susan!
Mom,
Susan, what are you doing?
I sell the food I cook.
But you're pregnant. Why did you work so hard?
I'm fine, Peter.
but Mom, you're competing with Mrs. Pear.
So what? We live in a free country. We have the right to do business. Mrs. Susan, I'm selling well. Do you want to destroy me? Sorry, Mrs. Pear. You can sell. And so I can too. Miss Olive. Miss Mary. Buy my dishes. It's good.
Okay, Mrs. Susan.
I made a lot of money today. I should have done it earlier.
Mom, you shouldn't have done that. Mrs. Pear is very angry.
It's her business. Why blame me?
But it's unfair competition, Mom. Mrs. Pear opened before you. Why did you copy her?
But I cook better than Mrs. Pear, Lucas. Everyone likes it. Why can't I do it like her?
But
Lucas, I'm going to the supermarket to buy ingredients. I need to cook the menu for tomorrow.
Hey, Mrs. Susan. I've been upset for days. Why did you do that? Why did you copy me?
Hey, Mrs. Pear. Why can't I? You can do it. So I can too.
Mom! Mrs. Susan!
Mom! Mrs. Pear! Stop arguing!
We're neighbors. You shouldn't argue.
What's that noise? It's the sound of a police car.
Mr. Simon?
Mrs. Susan. Mrs. Pear. I got a report from the Food Safety Department. The food you sell has caused poisoning to several people.
What?
You're banned from selling the foods. You also get the fine. Each person is fined $5,000.
What? It can't be.
Susan. Still vegetables for dinner?
I was fined $5,000. We have to continue eating vegetables for the next month.
But it's your fault, Mom!
Eat quickly, Lucas.
Mom! Why are you chasing me?
Apple. It was all your fault. That idea was yours. I got a fine of $5,000. Wait, Apple.
Why did Mrs. Susan imitate Mrs. Pear when she opened a food stall? A. She was jealous of Mrs. Pear. B. She wanted to destroy Mrs. Pear. C. She wanted people to praise her for her good cooking. D. She wanted to make money. Please subscribe channel if you like my content. That's the motivation for me to create new videos. Thank you very much.